Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Back to the Future, Intelligent Information Management Comes of Age. I'm Teresa Resick, Vice President of Market Intelligence at AIIM, and AIIM is your host and producer of today's event. And joining us are AIIM President Peggy Winton and John Newton from Alfresco. Highland and Alfresco are the underwriters of today's webinar, and we thank them very much for their support. And certainly, thanks to all of you for taking the time to join us today. And as we get started, I just want to share a few tips for participating in today's webinar. Because you're joining live, you can resize the windows that you have in front of you. I encourage you to open the group chat feature that's in one of the icons across the bottom and use that to message with each other and with us here at AIIM. And I encourage you to go in there right now and just tell us where you're listening from. Look forward to taking a peek to see where all you are in the world today. I encourage you to download the resources we have. There's a wide variety of different research papers, infographics, and just a lot of really cool stuff in there. So go over to the resources, and they will open in, when you click on that, it'll open in a new browser tab so that you'll be able to complete the downloads and have all of those really cool things for you. We encourage you to ask questions of our speakers throughout this broadcast time, and we'll have a few minutes towards the end of the webcast for Q&A time, so use the Q&A feature to submit those questions. I would greatly appreciate it if you would take our feedback survey that is in the icons across the bottom, but it also will launch out for you at the end of our webinar. And as I said, I do value your feedback and certainly read every one of the responses that you provide us. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be posted to AIIM.org's Resources Webinars page in just a few days. Right now I want to introduce the speakers we have with us today. And starting with Peggy Winton, with over 30 years of organizational and business development experience, Peggy is responsible for the strategic, technical, and customer growth direction of AIIM. As our Chief Executive Officer, she leads a team focused on helping organizations meet their digital transformation objective of understanding, anticipating, and redefining internal and external customer experiences. And also with us is John Newton, and he is Alfresco's CTO and founder. John has one of the longest and most influential careers in content management. In 1990, John co-founded, designed, and led the development of Documentum, and for the next 10 years, he invented many of the concepts widely used in the industry today. John was one of the founding engineers at Ingress, where he helped develop the world's first commercial relational database. So right now, I'm going to turn things over to Peggy Winton to begin our talk today. Peggy?
Teresa, thanks so much. Yes, we're in great company today with John Newton. I'm really looking forward to having John's perspective on where we've been and where we're going. And with the help of Alfresco and Highland, we've got some excellent customer references, and that will add a lot of context to some of the principles and some of the practices that we're going to talk about over the next few minutes. We've got a lot to cover. Before we get started, though, I thought let's take a bit of a look back before we look ahead. What a year it has been. What are the things that have informed your look ahead when you consider the last half of this year? So humor us, if you will, and choose the best answer that describes your organization's top priority or concern in this second half of 2020? Have you largely been spent reconciling or dealing with work from home issues? Has it been all about cutting costs and realizing efficiencies? Or are you really hell-bent on innovating around your products and services to serve your customers? And related to that, have you been improving customer experience? Might be a delivery of your products or services. So take a minute, think about the top priority for you. And I think that'll help us just gauge where everybody is today. Give it a minute for things to weigh in here. All right. So really looks like folks are all about innovating. And that's super exciting as we think about what a recovery might look like. We've been saying for years that everyone is on or should be on a digital transformation journey. And of course, at the heart of that is this need, this drive to anticipate our customers and our customer needs and experiences. And that journey hasn't stopped in the wake of COVID. I'm delighted to see that you all feel the same. You could easily say that the pace of the journey has accelerated, and you see all kinds of new disruptions and disruptors. But for many, the first instinct in a pandemic-induced recession is to get back to basics and sort of circle the wagons so that we maintain things like operational efficiency, sales effectiveness, and cost reduction. Those things are super always important, but we can't really wait around for them to be achieved because our customers expect products and services to be delivered. They need to be better, they can't be lame, and they need to be delivered faster than ever before. I think we're all used to that as consumers in our own right. Nothing really screams pandemic like our demand for things like convenience and availability and speed in providing the really basic necessities of life. So on the one hand, and this is why we came to the title of today's presentation, it is back to basics around the need for business productivity. But on the other hand, we've got to have a modernized approach that's changing, that's meeting changing customer demands and this new pace of change. So this is a great time for me to bring in John and ask John if COVID is the great accelerator or the accelerant for these objectives, what's the downstream effect on business strategies and some of the systems and solutions that are needed now to really operationalize them?
Thanks, Peggy. Actually, I started 2020 just researching digital transformation and some of the patterns of digital transformation. And lo and behold, almost at the very beginning, things started changing rapidly, with COVID being the catalyst for so much change that was really pent up. And to a certain extent, there just wasn't a reason to start to move, but now there absolutely is. Because of COVID, there's entire industries that are just under existential threat. Hotels, restaurants, anything to do with travel, entertainment, getting together, but also the downstream effect as well when people can't go shopping, if they can't do the things that they used to do. And there's a big realignment, as people start to go to digital. So basically, this is accelerating digital transformation. And what's coming out of this is our new digital products, services, and platforms. Also, as a result of COVID-19, we have no idea what is happening next. And to a certain extent, is the stock market a really good indicator of what's going on? Well, not really, when there's like literally tens of millions of people out of work. There's just a lot of uncertainties going on. And so what do you do in that sort of recessionary environment? Well, you have to protect the business. You have to balance growth with efficiency. Those who simply cut in previous recessions actually never caught up again. Those that overinvested in growth ended up just falling behind. So it's actually a good chance to protect your business, to protect the cost basis, and to not go out of business by looking at your ecosystem and starting to integrate it more closely and evaluate your value chain and start to optimize some of the waste that's in there. And then finally, going to work. Well, I haven't been to work in quite a while. And actually, I just work from home. In fact, I can work, at the moment, I'm working from the Virgin Islands. I can work from any home. And it's not a forced distribution of work. It's actually quite a welcome distribution of work. And this has forced us to find new agile ways of working. And that in turn has forced new business strategies of distributing knowledge work and collaboration, where we don't have to be face-to-face to actually get stuff done. Some people have even found that they're more productive in this new environment rather than less productive. So these are some of the drivers that are actually changing this rapid evolution towards digital initiatives.
Thanks. And as you indicate, John, distributed work and the need for new platforms, certainly using a monolithic information management system with a single content repository just isn't going to cut it anymore. Happily, 92% of you agreed that your organizations really have to modernize your information management strategy and ecosystem in order to meet these new challenges. So it's really clear that we need scale and we need agility, and we really need it now. We need the vision that we've been painting around intelligent information and content management, content services for some time, so that remote workers can do 4 key things: create, capture, and share the information they need to do their job, safely access all the business critical information they need regardless of where it lives, and extract insight, extract good information for decision making, and the ability to seamlessly deliver content in context to drive those critical and very customer facing applications. And finally, we got to apply governance to that. And we simply can't scale if we're doing it using manual processes or manual practices of old. We've got to automate the governance because the volume of information certainly is not diminishing, it's growing. And that includes now so much more customer personal data. So these are 4 key tenets of our intelligent information management practice. We're going to look at each of these capabilities over the next several minutes. We're going to see how they've changed as the business drivers are changing, and see how it's impacting their business application. And with John's help, we're going to see how your peers in a variety of industries are really, I hate that word pivoting, we've overused it, but are pivoting to meet these new challenges, and they're really rising to new levels of excellence so that we can be prepared. We can come out of this and be leaders and be competitive. Does that sound okay? So let's take this first one and talk about the importance, the relevance now evermore of content services in the cloud. The extension of content services to the cloud is the logical step forward for a digital transformation. We've got to ensure that content is consistently available, it's accessible, and it's shareable in this distributed work environment that John described. And because of a growing confidence in cloud applications, AIIM has been tracking that for a long time, we're seeing a shift is definitely emerging where business leaders and department heads are identifying otherwise impediments to their team's effectiveness. That's not going to work if John's in the Virgin Islands. And we're not hesitating to introduce cloud-based technology to enhance our departmental operations. So we're really starting to recognize that the cloud is not just about storage. It's not just about cost savings, mobile access, and even flexibility. It really represents an opportunity to rethink and reconfigure our very business processes. How are they cloud first and cloud enabled versus just lifting and shifting to the cloud? And that really has the potential to enhance personal productivity, customer experience, and those kind of basics that we've been after, the organizational efficiency with governance and some level of control built in. So, John, for years, we've witnessed this almost like a tug of war between those who wanted to protect the business and those who wanted to enable it. And as a result, migration to the cloud was still difficult for a lot of organizations. Have you seen that previous obstacles have been trumped now by this necessity during this pandemic? And what are some of the assurances that you all give your customers when it comes to their cloud content services? I think you've got a great example with Liberty Mutual and reduced costs on things, just basic things like printing and postage.
Yes. So first of all, don't use the word trumped. But yeah, actually, it was about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, the CIO of Liberty Mutual just made the decision that the business needed to be more agile. Now, traditionally, insurance has been one of the most conservative industries, and you would have thought that it would have been one of the last ones to actually move. So many regulated industries have just simply said, oh, no, the regulators won't let us do it. And so it's been an excuse not to move to the cloud. However, when you look at the most important information in the organization, is it better being locked up behind four walls, or is it better to be able to move faster? And that's what Liberty Mutual looked at. They were looking at new lines of business and saying, how can we exploit these new lines of business and get into these new lines of business, expand internationally out of our US and North American base. And so the cloud was a way to do that and to push for paperless operations around the globe and just start to move things out. And this became a top initiative to them, is to move 60% of their workloads to the cloud. And they're moving even more right now, but it's to become more nimble, more so than actually saving cost. However, by doing so, you do save money. They saved about 21 million over 5 years just because of the massive reduction in paper, printing, and document storage. But more importantly, they are now a more agile business.
Not surprising at all. And just an interesting, kind of fun little data point that we've got when we look at the cloud and its use as a collaborative tool. We asked what's your top priorities? What are you most using it for? And it is pretty much basics around all the things that a distributed workforce would want. File management, sharing those documents, video. We know we're all using Zoom and other platforms for our conference calling and webcasting, and content authoring so that we can work on things together and work on documents as a team. Those are the top priorities. Not really surprising, I think, in a work from home environment right now, particularly folks who are doing it for the first time. John, you've got some things to talk about with regard to Cisco, and I'm curious, was Cisco's sales and marketing cloud infrastructure well in place before COVID?
Yeah, they started moving in that direction way before that. And because collaboration has been evolving rapidly. And in fact, Cisco has its own suite of collaboration tools. But when you look at that top demand that you posted in the previous slide there, it's about sharing information and making it easily accessible. Now, for Cisco, the prime driver was to demonstrate to their customers quality control of the product and to show that they were following ISO protocols in terms of getting from design all the way to delivery to the customer. So to make sure that, that the customer is getting the right information, you can imagine the total number of combinations and permutations of Cisco kit within large enterprises. And so making sure that the right information was there was incredibly important. This was not a casual content problem. This was mission critical to get there and incredibly important for the salespeople, where they had to find the right information quickly with so many combinations and so many ways of accessing these technical specifications. So what they did was they built a fully integrated sales and marketing information infrastructure, connecting into their Salesforce infrastructure, connecting to all their different channels of content and collaboration, and making it all work together. And also having those controls in place, those process controls, those quality controls, those governance controls. And so they were able to build and deploy this relatively rapidly. And now it's fully deployed to all 250,000 employees and partners. And that partners part is incredibly important because it's a fuzzy line between internal and external. And as a result, they've actually saved tens of millions of dollars in productivity going forward by re-looking at this and digitally enabling a process that had been pretty manual and pretty paper-based in the past.
I am so glad that you gave a sales and marketing example, because that is a line of business that is really first and foremost now, and people don't always have good examples, those people being on the front line of the customers right now. Great example, and certainly impressive metrics there. So let's talk about, John mentioned control. Let's talk about a topic that's very near and dear to a lot of the audience's heart right now, and that is governance and records management. The AIIM community has long made the connection between the excessive amounts of information that's flowing into and swirling around our organizations and the compliance and the legal risk that this carries. But just as so many of you are looking ahead to the year and looking at innovation and the impact on your customers, the increasing customer demand for value and availability and quality when it comes to products and services is really causing a shift. And I'm delighted to see a shift in the perceived role of information governance within most organizations. And for digital transformation leaders, something bigger is definitely in play now, and that's an increasing connection between information governance and business strategy, particularly in this current economic climate. And 58% of you, more than half of our information governance practitioners and professionals in our community say, yeah, that's right. We've got to move up the value chain when it comes to being directly influential on the business. And so in an era with rising levels of both information chaos and customer expectations, it's more critical than ever before that we make a commitment to move away from manual governance. Most of your users, most of your colleagues don't understand it. They don't like it when they're asked to drag, drop, create file folders, what have you. And that's when mistakes happen. It's no wonder. And we tapped into AIIM's certified information professionals, our own expert panel, our own group within AIIM, and asked them about this whole thing. And I love some of the feedback. You're not going to get individual knowledge workers to care about governance. You just need to figure out how to automate it. Knowledge workers need to focus on their core competency for the organization, and we need to figure out how to automate that as much as possible. It needs to be baked into the back end so that nobody has to think about it. They just think about getting their work done. And one of my favorite quotes from one of our friends at Raytheon said, "I know I'm doing my job when my business users don't know I'm doing my job." So, John, we often advise our information governance brothers and sisters to focus on the mission and not how the sausage is made. And nobody knows more about mission than the U.S. Navy. So tell us about their records management efforts. That I love that it was designed for the leadership. It wasn't just for the RM practitioners internally, but for leaders who were making decisions.
Yeah, so, in the military, all the branches have had records management for quite some time. In fact, some of the standards emerged out of the first Iraq War, where information for the first time had been lost because it was electronic. However, what a lot of military organizations try to do is just take old paper-based systems and turn them into electronic forms and expect people to follow the process, and it just didn't get done. In the meantime, government has been increasing the requirements for greater record keeping and better visibility and transparency as to what's going on. And so there are mandates that require more and more information to be captured electronically. In fact, it's getting to the point where every federal worker is practically a records manager, or should be a records manager. Well, that doesn't work unless it's just automatic. And so that's the result of Dawn Tracker in the Navy to try and automate some of this stuff, and particularly as leadership, as you explained. Basically, Dawn Tracker is about superior officers giving orders and then having a team that is there to fulfill those orders. So it's actually a collaboration. It's task management. It's actually case management, pulling together people to execute on an order, and then the end result gets reported back to the person who gave that order originally. The end result of that is a record. So to a certain extent, you can look at this as a records management application, but in reality, it's a productivity application that gets rid of those old paper forms of how you did things in the past and just accelerates things and just makes it simple. Especially the records management and the governance aspect of this is just completely automatic, where it just gets stored off at the end, where all the context has been captured, and that's enough to say this is how it's going to be filed as a record overall. The end result of that was just a lot less bookkeeping and administrative stuff that had to be done, so that's workflow efficiency when you just get rid of work. And so efficiency increased by 57%. And also something that's really important in the military is that some things you have no idea, is this information classified or not? Just pulling together a couple of pieces of information may put people's lives in danger or assets in danger in the battlefield. And so classified record spillage is important because you don't want the enemy to find out what's going on. And so this reduced that spillage by 80%. Mm-hmm. And the end result was that in their first deployment, they were saving $20 million per year and meeting all these information records and compliance mandates that were being put upon the Navy, as well as practically all the federal government.
Mm. Really, really impressive. And of course, the process automation overall is the end game. The mission is the end game, not the governance or records management that goes into it. That's a great segue for our next session about that. And I hope you all are starting to see this theme. Two obvious reasons for organizations to undertake a process automation project are, again, some of those basic things like efficiency, 23% of you said to reduce the time it takes to complete a process, and cost, another 22% there, reducing the cost of a particular process. But there's another emerging set of themes in this data. If you look at aggregating the bottom three responses, and it's improving customer satisfaction, growing new revenues, expanding market reach. These responses are focused on customer experience and directly tied to that importance that leading organizations are now placing on understanding and mapping those cross-departmental processes and the customer journeys and overcoming the chaos at the same time. And this is such a classic COVID dynamic there. So, John, RBC's head of operations and shared services talked about the need for business users to understand the context with any document or what have you. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, there's so many processes in business that are really content rich and really document rich. And so things like post-trade activity, confirmations, payments, tax, compliance, all sorts of regulatory submissions and stuff like that. This is the core of actually building trust, both for the bank's customers, but also the regulators as well. Just being able to track and know where everything is. And it's just so hard to pull together these processes. And using clunky old tools that were designed for one process don't necessarily translate into another process. So when you reimagine that whole business process, again, it's kind of the equivalent of don't just take a paper form and turn it into an electronic form. Don't take a paper process and turn it into an electronic process. Reimagine it with new modern tools, with mobile, with the ability to do things more interactively on workstations and on laptops. And so that's what they did, is they built a digital business platform to build new applications to deal with these trade activities, confirmations, back office, front office, middle office activities, as well as the being able to deal with regulators as well. And so with this platform, they built 14 apps that gave 3,500 users, increased operational efficiency, tighter internal controls, and strengthened regulatory compliance, actually increasing employee satisfaction in the process as well. Being able to be more productive is certainly more fulfilling than just dealing with a lot of paperwork or a bunch of clunky old forms. And so that's what RBC has been able to do by taking content, process, analytics, making them all work together to reimagine these business processes.
That it takes a special mind to do that, and I think that's an emerging skill. So hone those and sharpen those, everybody in the audience. We asked many of you, what's the primary target of your automation efforts? And 60% of you said production processes. 40% of you said that the primary benefit was ad hoc processes. Well, that's not surprising either. I think organizations focus on production processes because that's where the most pain is, particularly as you start to expand your focus from individual processes to those broader customer journeys. There's that customer word again. And this is where newer technologies like robotic process automation can play a really important role, not as a substitute for the larger business process management or case management, but really in conjunction with them. So as we see the need for automation moving beyond those core set of initial, what we saw in enterprise content management processes, you're looking for automation solutions that are a lot more nimble, a lot more agile, and so much more easily deployed by the business. John described that. People who are reimagining this to tackle new waves of process challenges. And I always say, after all, who better than those frontline and process owners to lead impactful content-driven initiatives? So that's really the key driver for what we are seeing are those low code or no code. That no code is not really a good term because everything's got a code ultimately, but low code application platforms, those self-service platforms that allow organizations to improve their business outcomes and all kinds of work, not just structured and repeatable business processes. So not surprisingly, most of the organizations we talk to find that low-code platforms really yield significant and a lot more immediate returns. John, Pitney Bowes cut out the need for provisioning and waiting for, IT to approve and or have to program new onboarding offerings and capabilities. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so you probably remember Pitney Bowes from the old Pitney Bowes machines that were invented about 100 years ago to take, and automatically put stamps on envelopes and whatever. And it's the original mail franking machines. Over time, though, Pitney Bowes' business has moved away from the U.S. mail to global mail. In fact, multiple distribution channels, UPS, FedEx, and all sorts of different ways of moving things around. It became clear that Pitney Bowes' business is not about adding a stamp onto an envelope or a package, but to actually be in the business of logistics and to do that in a modern way and move these physical processes to digital processes. So you don't have to think about what is the best way in your new commerce to move a box from your warehouse to the customer. Pitney Bowes can look at this as an end-to-end process. Well, these are complicated processes. They're reimagining how you get a product from point A to point B. And actually signing up customers needs to be very different than the old days of, fill in all these forms in our back office, we'll fill in everything else. The expectation in today's world is that you can onboard that customer in seconds. And so they moved from that 3 days to 5 seconds that expected of new modern e-commerce types of platforms. And so basically starting to look at these low-code platforms of building process-centric applications that were incredibly content-rich and information-rich, and be able to pull them together meant that they could start to move their business away from the old traditional physical business into entirely new digital businesses overall. I think this is something that we're going to see in every single industry, is reimagining physical and manual processes into digital processes. And it's going to touch, not just organizations that are already digital, like banks and to a certain extent insurance, but also, government and logistics and manufacturing are all going to go digital, and its speed is absolutely critical. And apps are actually the way to look at this, and the processes behind the apps are incredibly important.
Well, that is a perfect segue as we talk about the extraction of intelligence to just fuel everything downstream. And when we asked you all about the capabilities most required, you think, to solve today's information management issues broadly, there's one at the very top of the list, and that is integrating content into core business processes and doing it as seamlessly as possible. But it's not an easy task for a lot of organizations, and that's because 54, almost half of the information that most of us need within a particular business application is actually in the application itself. It's not cordoned off or waiting for us in some sort of dedicated content repository. So in 75% of organizations, simply managing those documents and content necessary for knowledge workers to get that work done that John was talking about is actually a problem. So, John, clearly these offerings reduce the time spent looking for business information, significantly improving productivity, but they can also provide such a richer and just endearing customer experience. You've got a FINRA example to share with us.
Yeah, actually, this is one of my favorites. FINRA is actually an organization that came out of the crash in the 1920s when banking had to be reformed. And it's the Financial Regulatory Authority. It's actually the banking industry regulating itself and just overseeing all the transactions that are happening. So 99% of equity markets and 65% of the options markets overall. And so what FINRA is doing is just pulling together like billions of transactions, and like literally more than happens on Facebook or Google, Visa, everything else. And so it's seasonal, and they have to spin up all these new infrastructure and then be able to deal with it. And so the thing I like about FINRA is we've worked a lot with AWS. FINRA's worked a lot with AWS, and they're actually the test case for a lot of bleeding edge technologies in terms of artificial intelligence, natural language processing, analytics, all sorts of stuff, and the ability to scale up cloud infrastructure very, very quickly. And so they determined early on that they needed a cloud-based document management service that they could access that could just store customer complaint, or client complaints. So, if you've been cheated out of your money or a trade has gone wrong, you can make a complaint, and FINRA is the one that has to deal with it and investigate it. They're also proactively looking for market anomalies, that may be caused by bad actors in the whole process. So they also went and looked at how can they use artificial intelligence to speed up the process in which investigators can actually look at these complaints and see what's behind them and pull together all this information. This has been a template for how we look at, the problem for everyone. How do you deal with millions or even billions of pieces of information and know what's going to be right for the situation that we're doing? So this is essentially a cloud-based case management that is powered by artificial intelligence to be able to pull out that content and be able to pull the context together to be able to empower that investigator to be able to deal with more complaints faster and to provide more satisfactory outcomes in the process.
Impressive. Let's talk about the intake. And John, you mentioned, paper and digital. It's obviously hybrid. Intelligent capture has been part of our content management equation for a long time, and it represents some of the most proven and mature solutions. But for many years, capture, I'm putting that in quotes, was almost something of an afterthought. It was thought about primarily for paper documents, archiving the document rather than extracting that data from the document for downstream processes. It was sort of something you did at some point after information already entered the organization. It meant that disparate digital and paper information streams have just got to come together in a single stream in order to be managed efficiently. So as a result, many document-driven business functions have either reached, or I think they're reaching, their tipping point for automation. And that's where automating processes becomes absolutely critical to accomplishing that. It's high quality in a timely manner. We talked about that as a customer driver. So organizations are realizing that processes can't really be automated until the unstructured information that underlies them is in a machine comprehensible form so they can get the heft. And organizations have to embrace AI and machine learning as a process. Take that friction out of that process of classifying incoming information and assigning the relevant metadata to it. So Allstate, they've made some huge strides in how they are managing the intake of their documents right now. Tell us more about that, John.
Yeah, so just like intelligent capture has been around for a very long time, so is claims management. Claims management software has been around for at least a couple of decades, if not 3 or 4 decades now. And it started to migrate finally off of some of those mainframes as well. However, there has been a relationship between clients and the insurance agencies and the home offices. And Allstate is an organization that was spread all over the United States. And policies, were still being managed as paper. Claims were being managed as paper, where you go and fill things out. And you need to start to make that adjustment. However, what was happening is when people move from one state to another, it could take a long time to get the original paperwork from wherever the customer may have been or the client may have been based originally. And let's say they move from Ohio to California or from Florida to Washington State or something like that. Their paper trail actually had to follow them. Yes, all the claims were there digitally inside of the claims management system, but not everything else. Not only that, the input of all this information was getting more and more complicated. It wasn't just about the adjuster going out and taking a bunch of Polaroids or even the digital equivalent of Polaroids. Customers were doing it themselves. They were taking photos, they were taking videos, and there uploading huge amounts of information. This is an opportunity, again, to reimagine the entire insurance process so that it can be uploaded and can be accessible anywhere, not just in the United States, but anywhere in the world as well. And then also to be able to now have access to that information for more intelligent processing. So just imagine the adjuster's challenge of doing ICR on an invoice, for a repair bill or something like that. How many invoices are exactly the same or of a common pattern? Like practically zero. So new generations of ICR are coming in using artificial intelligence that can recognize images on claims photos, understand what's happening inside of videos, but also in terms of the transaction documents as well, actually be able to pull out the relevant information of very loosely formed documents that need to have meaning extracted out of the whole process. That is an entirely digital claims process that allows that whole submission of claim to ultimate payout to just go incredibly fast compared to the way that it was done in the past. So this, like many others, is just an example of claims management, of case management. Most of the use cases we've talked about here are about case management, and that's the heart of a lot of these digital transformations, is about case management, which is kind of an old term, just like claims management, but in a really new digital setting.
That's perfect. That's a perfect way to come full circle, John, and case management is that sort of completion of the circle. What John and I have been talking about are what we see as the 4 key capabilities. And if you've been paying attention to what AIIM has done, these align with the 4 key tenets of what we call intelligent information management. They happen to also comprise 4 out of the 5 domains of knowledge in AIIM's CIP exam. Please take advantage of this new infographic that we've produced, and it's available in the resource section here today. It describes those 5 key tenets, what's comprised of each of them, what you find underneath it, and we've touched on every single one of those today. So, John, now it's time for a look ahead, and I'm going to put you on the spot here to see what 2021 really means for these people and these visions that we've been painting here. Let's take a final poll, though, to see how everybody feels. If we ask you to look ahead, what do you see as your organization's biggest opportunity in 2021? Is it really perfecting your process automation projects and goals there? Is it striving for organizational efficiency? Is it building brand loyalty, really coming out ahead there? Or is it finally getting your arms around data and analytics? So let me give you a second to do that. I'll ask John to interpret the results, and then we'll carry on through and get right up to the end of our time together. Which is your biggest priority for the coming year? Okay, so we were looking in 2020 at that just innovation, and we need process automation and organizational efficiency in order to achieve that. Not too surprising. John, what do you make of these responses, and what do you see in the year ahead?
Well, it's, just kind of given the industry, it's not terribly surprising, but I think overall all of those are important. But I think those key areas, of operational efficiency is key to actually customer success. And process automation as well is really about making things more efficient and being able to move more rapidly. And that's why we created our digital business platform. It's our digital business platform, but we want to make it your digital business platform. And it's not just our capabilities, but a broader set of digital capabilities. What we're bringing to that is the opportunity to take your most important information, whether it's the transactional information, if it's claims, if it's investigations, if it's business critical information that needs to get to the customer with high quality. We protect and secure those corporate assets. We also make it visible across the board. And as you said, Peggy, it just doesn't live in one system anymore. We really need to be able to access it everywhere across the entire enterprise to be able to federate it. We need to be able to manage the regulatory risk as well. We saw that governance is not just for records managers anymore. Everybody has to become a records manager. It needs to be invisible and make governance invisible. We need to be able to automate, and we can see artificial intelligence being applied to make it more effective, to be able to find things, to be able to speed up and provide greater productivity, to be able to analyze the end results to figure out where your bottlenecks are, and then just integrate to all the new tools that customers have. They're not looking backwards to the old enterprise tools. They're looking forward to the more consumer-oriented tools that integrate within this infrastructure, and then having process be able to drive the whole thing. Now, it needs to be deployed in many places, and the cloud is where things are going. That is where agility comes from, as well as cost savings. We've been working with AWS for quite a while. We also work with Microsoft Azure to be able to take and deploy in the cloud. So if on-premise you think is your thing, well, consider inside a public cloud where you own everything. Or we can operate it for you where you just don't even need to think about that anymore. Your information's isolated, it's separated from everyone else, it's boxed separately, but that operation can be taken off your hands. But if you still need on-premise, then that's an option. So it's a flexible way of building these new applications, these new case-oriented applications to go faster than ever before, and by being able to deploy it continuously to the cloud. Now, where we go from here is that we are able to take these capabilities. Now, consider what COVID has been driving in terms of the existential threat, the long-term uncertainties, and the new distributed work. Digital leaders are actually embracing these and moving forward with new digital products, a greater ecosystem integration and value chain optimization, distributed knowledge work and collaboration. Well, we are dealing with that by providing the tools to rapidly deliver solutions on cloud-native platforms so that you can deploy it wherever you need to deploy it. We use open source and open architectures to be able to connect information and teams and connect to all the sources of information, to all the users of information. And then bringing a best-of-breed content services to facilitate that distributed knowledge work. This can lead to new business outcomes for you, new digital solutions delivered continuously, connections, trust, and empowerment at scale, and providing your most important information is protected and unlocked to be used as it needs to be used effectively. And our advantage in doing this is to rapidly build digital solutions with deployment of choice, use open source to drive new innovation and new integrations, and then integrate content, process, insights, governance, all in one digital platform. Now, you may be aware, Alfresco is now part of the Highland family. We were acquired last month, or 2 months ago in October, and actually the two companies combined have a huge potential together. You can bring the leading open source platform with a vibrant developer community, a cloud-native platform that can be provided as a software as a service, a platform as a service, using major public clouds, federation services, and extend and integrate to quickly build these business cases that we've seen so far, along with a leading low-code application development environment and industry expertise to pull it all together. And these two combined are going to create a really interesting dynamic in the content services marketplace. This just came out recently, And both Highland and Alfresco have been named leaders in the 2020 Gartner Magic Quadrant for Content Platform Services. The two combined are now a $1 billion per year company and growing very rapidly. And it will become a force to be reckoned with in this marketplace, moving beyond the legacy systems and challenging them to move and innovate at the speed of open source, and to be able to take solutions that are rapid and deliver rapid value like never before.
John, thank you so much. We are up against our hour, and interestingly, the questions that have been submitted have been very specific to John about Alfresco Highland, as well as the case studies that he used. So we will ensure that you have those conversations after we sign off. We promise that we'll be getting back to you on that. So thank you so much. I want to thank John Newton. I want to thank John's support and having the whole Alfresco and Highland family around this endeavor. Please take advantage of the resources that we provided in this platform for you. You are going to want to use John's slides as examples internally. You're going to want to use some of those visionary charts that John used to really set your own strategy for 2021. Good for you all for your aspirations. We are here to support you in those, and there is a bright future ahead for us. So take advantage of these resources. I hope that you will be joining us at late April for the AIIM conference, where we'll enjoy participation from the Alfresco Highland family, and looking forward to seeing all of you. So I'm Peggy Winton for AIIM. Thanks again to John Newton. That's all the time we have for right now. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.